Hello, Mr. Y here, and today I would like to talk about rewriting equations in y = form. The reason we need to learn to do that is so we can more easily graph linear equations. So, y = form merely means that we want to take this equation and end up with something like that. Well, what's in the way of being able to write y = form here? Well, it's merely this negative 3x. And we found in the last chapter the way we remove the negative 3x is by doing the opposite operation. We add 3x. Well, if we add 3x to one side of the equation, of the equal sign, then we need to do the same on the other side. So I would add 3x to this side. When we do that, we find out that these two cancel. That's why we use the opposite operation. Therefore, we're now left with just y on the left-hand side, which is precisely what we wanted to do. Now on the right side, we have 2 plus 3x. Now you cannot combine them because one is a number and one is a term containing an x. And x's and regular numbers do not mix. It's like oil and water, so we can't combine them. So, to rewrite this equation, y minus 3x equals 2, in y = form would be y = 3x plus 2. Now I want you to notice something. I want you to notice that we could have rewritten this on the opposite side with the opposite sign. Notice because we're removing it, that the 3x ended up over here, but instead of a minus, it had a plus. So there's a shortcut we can use, and I'd like to show you that in the next problem. Here's the next equation. Again, we want to write it in y = form. That's our goal. So this is where we want to go. I talked about a quick method, and the quick method was that we observed that when we remove the negative 5x from this side, which is our goal because we want y by itself, when we remove it, we just use the inverse or opposite operation. So in other words, we added 5x on both sides. Well, if we added 5x on both sides to remove this, we can just rewrite it over here with a plus. Because it's coming first, we won't write the plus, but it is assumed that if I don't put a sign in front that it's a plus. Now, what about this negative 7? Well, did we move it? Well, the answer is no. It stayed on the same side of the equal sign. So therefore, we would just rewrite it down here with the same sign. The sign does not change. It remains a negative. Now, you'll be able to understand this at a deeper level if you know what's going on. So let me explain again real quickly how this works. We want to remove this, so we added 5x to this side. And that was the opposite or inverse operation. That's why it canceled. That's why we had y by itself. But we found if you add it on this side, you have to add it on this side of the equals. So that's why we ended up with a plus 5x on this side. So again, the quick method of rewriting in y = form is that you can remove a term on this side if you write it on the opposite side with the opposite sign. Let's do another problem. Here's another problem, a little more difficult. We still want to write it in y = form, but now we have 4y over here is the difference. Well, we'll start out the same way. We'll try to get rid of this minus 3x, and instead of putting y =, I will put 4y =. I'm going to use the quick method. The quick method was that I can move this from this side to this side by simply changing the sign from minus to plus. The negative 24 did not move, therefore I leave it the same. That's step 1. Step 2 is to remove the 4. Then I will have y = form. The opposite operation because of the fact that I'm multiplying, the meaning of 4y is 4 times y, so therefore the opposite operation is going to be to divide both sides by 4. Now that I've done that, these cancel, and I have my equation in y equals form. Y equals 3/4 x minus 24 divided by 4 is 6 minus 6. So there's our answer. Y equals 3/4 x minus 6. Let's do another problem. Now, how is this equation any different than the others we've had so far? Well, you might notice that in front of the y is a negative, and that seems to trip students up a lot. So let's take a look at this one. First step would be, instead of writing it in y equals, we will have to write it as negative y equals. So we will bring those straight down. Again, if there's a negative in front, you can't just ignore it. We're going to remove the 2x, so we need the opposite operation to remove it, which basically moves it to this side with the opposite. Instead of a positive, it now has a negative. And then the 7 wasn't changed because the 7 doesn't have a sign in front of it. It's just assumed to be positive. So it would be plus 7. Now, negative y equals negative 2x plus 7. Well, we didn't want negative y. We wanted positive y. Once again, I'm going to give you a shortcut, and then I'm going to explain why it works. The shortcut is, if I want the opposite of this, because I don't want negative y, I want positive y, then I can do that by simply changing these to opposites as well. Instead of negative 2x, I will write positive 2x. The opposite of plus 7 is negative 7. Again, it'll help you to remember this if you understand it. So here's the reasoning that you can do that. To get rid of that negative, we divide everything by negative 1. When we do that, whenever we divide by negative 1, it basically makes just the opposite sign. A negative divided by negative is a positive. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. And finally, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Now, we haven't seen any where the y is on the other side of the equal, so let's do a couple problems that way. So now we have an equation where y is on the right side. So now our focus is over here. We want to be able to write y equals in this direction now. Really, nothing has changed. We basically need to just simply move the minus 5x from this side to this side. To do that, you change its sign. Instead of a minus, I will write it with a plus. The 10 is a positive number, so we just continue to bring it straight down. Now, one thing I do want is I want y to be first, and so we are going to just flip this equation like so. Whenever you flip an equation, you just leave all the signs the same. So again, flip the equation, you just flip it, they change sides. Don't get that confused with moving something to an opposite side. We didn't move it to an opposite side, we simply flipped it. There's a difference. And if you don't understand that difference, it might get a little confusing. So again, when you're moving to the opposite side, you change the sign. When you flip it, you do not. Let's work another problem. This equation has quite a bit going on here. We have 4x plus 2 plus 2y equals 10. But really, when we're writing equations in y equals form, the only thing you have to remember is I can move terms to the opposite side with the opposite operation. In other words, now I'm going to want 2y equals, and I need to move these two out of the way. So when I move 4x, I can move it over to this side if I use the opposite operation. If I want to move the 2 plus 2 to the opposite side, I can by putting minus 2 here. However, I'm going to put it right next to the 10 for now. And the reason is because we can go ahead and combine those and give our answer right here as a plus 8. Again, this will take one more step. We need to divide everything by 2 because the meaning of 2y means 2 times y. Therefore, the opposite operation of times is divide. Now, I can write my equation in y equals form. Y equals -4 divided by 2 is -2x. 8 divided by 2, of course, is 4. And there you have it. Hold on now, don't fall asleep yet. We have one more problem that I want to show you. And once you have this one mastered, you should be able to work any problem and convert any problem into y equals form. Here's our last problem. Not as many terms, doesn't look as complicated, but I want you to make a couple observations. We have a -7x here and a -3y. Again, our goal is to have y be on the left side of the equals. So why not just simply move this over to here and this over to here? Well, that's exactly what we will do. So let's move the -3y. Again, you can move it to the other side if you change the sign. So I'm changing it from a minus to a plus, which I don't write. And then I can do the same thing with the 7x. From a minus, I can bring it over here, as long as I make it the opposite sign, which is a positive. The 6, don't forget about the 6. It remained on the same side of the equal sign, so its sign remains positive. We have one more step left because, again, we do want to write the equation in y equals form. We must get rid of the 3, and I think you know how to do that. Because the meaning of 3y is times, we will divide by 3. These will cancel, and we will be left with 7/3 x plus 2. So there you have it, rewriting equations in y equals form.